Hey, I am Dr. Frias, the principal here at Williams, and you are attending the parent orientation for hybrid in-person instruction based on our most recent collection of survey data. So this should be in accordance with your most recent submission to the survey. So today I'm going to be kind of going over so if you were invited to attend this meeting, that means that because you submitted that survey in at the beginning, that right now your child has a spot reserved for them in our in-person hybrid instruction. So that means that we are planning on your child coming back to school. So we're going to talk a little bit today about what exactly that means. So that's going to include a brief discussion on the hybrid and virtual schedules. I'm going over both of them just because I know some parents are still, even though we have a certain, they've indicated a preference one way or the other. Some parents, do end up changing their mind, which is totally fine. So I want to show you both just so you have access to both. Also, I'm going to be reviewing the health and safety procedures for students that are coming back to school, and then some of the student and parent responsibilities, and then questions and answers. So I want to start by looking at the schedules, which I want to just let you guys know that you will be receiving the schedule for your child in the mail. So this isn't something you have to memorize. However, you are certainly welcome to anything that I present today. You are more than welcome to go ahead and take screenshots or take a picture or anything like that. So here is, I'm going to go ahead and just for the sake of our meeting today, and you know what, I'm going to pause the recording for a second because I see that we have a question at the moment. I don't want to record you on the line. 1 second. Okay, so I'm going to take for an example today for this session, the first through third schedule because it's in the middle. And really, it's the same pretty much for all grades. The only thing that's a little tiny bit different is TK in kindergarten, and they release 30 minutes before everyone else. But so as an example, you can see here on the left, this is the schedule for your students who right now at this point we have on record as being hybrid or in person. On the right, you see the schedule at the same times for students who are considered virtual. One thing I want to point out is that the schedule here at the top is for Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday only. The bottom you can see here is a Wednesday schedule. So Wednesday is a bit different than all the other days. So as an example, what you could expect for your student is that our gates would open to them at 8 a.m. They would report to their classroom. Class would begin at 8:15. They would remain here in person at Williams until 11 in the morning. At that time, they would be dismissed, of course, like I mentioned, except for TK in kindergarten, which that would be at 10:30. Students who are hybrid and in person, your students will receive their lunch for that day and breakfast for the following morning on the way out the gate. And so they would receive it out the gate. They wouldn't need to go to the distribution like they've been doing up to this point. They would be handed their bag and then they would go out the gate and go home. At that time, they would have a lunch period from 11 to 12, and then there would be asynchronous learning time or independent learning time from 12 to 1:20 p.m. At the same time that your kids are here in person, all full virtual students will have asynchronous instruction in the morning. So from 9:25 to 11, they will have work that they're expected to do on their own on their Chromebook. From 11 to 12, they also have the lunch period. So for students who are at home all day, they would have time to walk to school and come pick up their lunch, just like we've been distributing lunch to this point. And then they would have the same amount of time with the teacher as your kids, but theirs would be in the afternoon. So from 12:15 to 3 p.m., it's just 15 minutes different for TK and kinder, but they would be with their teacher on Zoom for the afternoon. For Wednesday, Wednesday is a day when it's an all virtual day for all students. So whether your students or full virtual, everybody will be doing school from home on Wednesdays. There is asynchronous or independent work for them to do on Chromebooks, and then they will log in from 9:30 to 10:30, which it's again slightly different, 15 minutes less for TK and kindergarten. But they will be on Zoom from 9:30 to 10:30 with their teacher, like what they're used to doing. So one of the things I want to point out, just so that it's something you can talk to your child about, is that they are during the week on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, they are only going to see their same instruction peers. So for example, your students who are in person, they will only see the kids from their normal class that are also in person on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Students who are full virtual will only see the full virtual kids Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. The only day when everybody will be together again, the way they know it right now, would be on Wednesdays for that 1 hour. So what's different about this schedule is, in order to allow for the teacher to give full attention to your kids when they're here at school, when these other virtual kids are doing work on their own, they're not going to be monitoring that. So those students and those parents would be expected to ensure that the work is getting done. They're not going to be logged into Zoom anymore during that time. So up to this point, teachers, even when your students are doing asynchronous work or working on their own, most teachers still keep the Zoom on, and they still kind of watch to see what they're doing. So, sometimes I'll be in classrooms visiting and they'll say, oh, I see you're on the wrong website. Go to this other website, make sure you're doing this. They will not be monitoring what the kids that are full virtual are doing. They'll be totally on their own to get the work done so they can give full attention to your kids. And then in the afternoon, it's the same thing and switched around. In order for teachers to give full attention to full virtual kids during their Zoom time, then your kids who are working on their own for asynchronous learning would be expected to work all on their own. Their teachers are not going to be online with them, seeing what they're doing, making sure they're getting their work done. That is totally on the responsibility of student and parents. So I just want to make sure you guys realize that is a slight change from what it has been in the past, and that's only to allow the teacher to give that full attention to the students that they're actually instructing and teaching for synchronous learning. Oops, let me get out of this. All right. So stable groups, that's a new terminology that I want to make sure you guys are familiar with. And so stable groups, that language comes from the health department, and it has to do with fixed membership or the same groups, so they're not interacting with each other. So the way we're defining a stable group is by grade level. So every grade level is considered a stable group. So first grade is one stable group. Kindergarten is another stable group. TK is a stable group. So those are all different stable groups. The idea behind it is that there wouldn't be, that we would make sure that those groups stay together and that they're not mixing with the other groups, so that if COVID-19 was introduced into one of those stable groups, it would remain within that group and not, not impact all the other groups. So we wouldn't have like a school-wide spread. It would be contained within the stable group. So that's kind of what that means. So having a couple of the prevention procedures also that we're doing to minimize any exposure to COVID-19 is a couple of things. One of them is student passive screening, which I'll talk about on the next slide, but that's basically, there's a guide for parents to go through for potential COVID-19 symptoms in the morning before making the decision that, yes, I'm going to send my child to school. Staff and teachers are required to do the same thing. So they're also required to use the self-assessment screening guide before deciding if they're going to report to work that day. Besides those things, there's also going to be an active health screening at the gate. So when your kids come in, that will consist of the no contact temperature check that we will be doing every single day before we can permit them to enter campus. So this is an idea of, this is the COVID-19 health screening guide. So this is a sheet that is included in a letter. So you will be receiving a letter probably over spring break, because the mail has just been a little bit slower during this pandemic. But you will receive a letter and it will have a copy of the screening guide. It'll have the schedule for your child, and then also there's a letter with information about what option that you selected. So for you, it'd be hybrid and in person. And so this guide goes through the list. If your child is experiencing fever, chills, cough, shortness of breath, all of those symptoms that I'm sure you guys are familiar with because of the news and things like that, that you would decide to keep them at home. And so you can see here, what we're asking is if your child is exhibiting any of the symptoms, they would just stay at home. You would give us a call and let us know. Something I want to make sure that you're aware of is that, because it's really important to us that if your child is feeling sick or has any of these symptoms, we really do want you to keep it at home to minimize any spreading of any illness, particularly COVID-19. But your child would then, just so you know, not have to completely miss school. They would have the option on, if you're keeping them home for COVID-19 symptoms, they would have the option then to attend the virtual session in the afternoon with the virtual kids. So they wouldn't be completely missing out at school. So that's a nice option that we have for our students, so that they're not missing out just because, they have to stay at home or quarantine or whatever that might be. Other health precautions, and these are some examples of signage that we have on campus to help our kids as a visual reminder. But physical distancing, at this point, we are still maintaining at least 6 feet of physical distancing at all times. Face coverings, the most recent guidance from the CDC and the California Department of Public Health is that anyone over the age of 2 must wear a face covering or mask at all times over their nose and mouth, and not a face shield, a face covering. So just keep in mind that is something that at this point is a requirement. It could change, but that is our most recent guidance. And then also we'll be encouraging students to do healthy hygiene practices, washing their hands for, every time, for, using lots of soap, washing for 20 seconds, drying completely, avoiding contact with those areas, which the face covering will help with. So this is in accordance with the stable groups. Something that's also a change is that in order for our doors to be open, this is one of the health procedures and protocols that we are required at our district to make sure that we are implementing. No exceptions. It's the condition for us to be open. And that is that stable groupings have a designated entry and exit point. So I know in previous years, we've had the main entry for everyone. That will not be happening anymore. We're not permitted to do that. So here are the different entry and exit points for the different stable groupings. So you will see TK in kindergarten. This is the gate that's right by their playground. So that is where they will be entering and exiting from school. Grades 1 to 2 will be exiting and entering the main gate, and grades 3 to 5 will be entering and exiting the Virginia Avenue. So again, I just want to emphasize that there are no exceptions for this. This is not something even as a district that we get to decide. This is one of the conditions we have to follow to even offer hybrid in-person instruction. So I just want to make sure, I know a lot of our families, sometimes we have a lot of people who walk together. So I just want to make sure you guys are aware right off the top of the bat that unfortunately, if kids are walking to school together, that's fine, but they will not be permitted to enter or exit through the same gate if they're in different grade levels. If they both happen to be in grades 1 and 2, then that would be okay, or 3 through 5. But like, for example, you couldn't have a kindergarten and a 3rd grade brother or sister enter the gate at the same place. It's just not a possibility. Students displaying symptoms. So any students, let's just imagine, so mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, babysitter, whoever it is, has already gone through the list of symptoms in the morning to double check to make sure, like, okay, you're okay to go to school, you're good, and sent them to school. We then at the gate are taking their temperature. So they might pass through our gate and make it through just fine, and they're permitted to come on campus. If later on a child starts displaying symptoms, which can happen, and it does happen sometimes, we are required to then send that student to an isolation room. So we do have a room on campus where they would be isolated from their stable group until a care team nurse comes to do an intake. So they would need to go do an actual assessment, not us. It's actually a specialized nurse who's trained, and they would go and check in on the student or child and just kind of make a determination about whether or not they're going to be permitted to just go back to class, depending on the assessment, or if they're going to need to be sent home. So we're going to get to communication later on, but it's really, really important for all students who are coming to school in person that we have active phone numbers, and that you have a plan B, a plan C for someone who can physically come and pick up your child in an emergency. All of our classrooms inside and out have been configured to meet all the COVID-19 prevention plan health precautions. So you can see these are actually pictures from here at Williams. So there's a picture, and like I said, you can take pictures of anything you see on the screen in case you want to talk to your kiddos about it. But every single desk is fitted with a plastic barrier and every desk is 6 feet away from each other at least. And students will be remaining in that area throughout the entire day. Also, we have markers. If you can see on the bottom photo, we have markers outside of their classroom in the lines so that they'll know where the 6 feet apart is. We did our very best to put as many markers as possible so students aren't having to guess if they're 6 feet or not, just to make it easier on everybody and set them up for success so they'll know exactly where to stand to stay spread apart from their peers. We will have a recess time, so I want to make sure you're aware of that. However, it will not look like recess used to. So students won't be able to just go and do whatever they want. Certain equipment, any playground equipment like balls and things that they would touch at this point, our guidance is we're not permitted to let students use those. And students also are not permitted to use the playground equipment like the play structure. So I just so you already are aware of that and can be talking to your child about that. However, it's been over a year since our students have seen each other. So we're working really hard within the guidelines and what we have to follow to have some outdoor structured activities within their group where they can still have some interaction with their peers, see friends they haven't seen in a long time, and have fun. It's really important to us that they have fun out there. So that's something that is going to look different. So make sure you talk to them about that, but they will have a recess time. Also, restrooms, part of the guidance from the health department is that stable groups have to have a designated restroom, again, so that there's not mixing of groups. So your child will know of what their designated restroom is, and that's the only restroom they'll be able to use. And really the only time they'll be able to use it would be during that recess time because school is very, very short. So for them to get the maximum amount of teaching time, it's only going to be during during the break, the recess break. So this is something else that we really encourage you to start talking to your kiddos about, because that's definitely something they're not used to at home. At home you can go to the restroom whenever you feel like it. So I kind of think about like when I was a kid and we were going to go on a long trip and my parents would say, go use the restroom, and I'd say, I don't need to go. And they would say, try anyway, and so kind of the same thing, just talking to your kiddos about, even if you don't think you need to go, definitely make sure you try to use the restroom during your break time so you're not having a situation where, later on we're going to regret that you didn't try to go. Meal distribution. So meal distribution for students coming back, your students, like I mentioned, they will receive their lunch right before they dismiss at their gate. For students who are virtual, we will still have, or even if you have some kids that are virtual and some that are in person, students who are virtual students will still have the opportunity to come and pick up their lunch like they have been all this time. So both will be happening, not exactly at the same time, but close to the same time. Student and parent responsibility. So it is really important that students are here every day on time, and that they're picked up immediately following that 11 o'clock dismissal, or for TK and K 10:30. The reason why we say that is because there's a 14 maximum capacity at this point of, that's the maximum number of students we're allowed and permitted to have in person for each class. So if your student or child was given that priority because you turned in your survey on time, which is awesome, they got that first spot, but that there may be a waiting list for your teacher. And so it's really important. We need to know that, whoever is coming, it is the option that's best meeting their needs. If we start to see that it's, they're not coming ever, it's just not happening, or they're always late, we may be contacting you to see if we can come up with a different solution in order to allow for someone that's on the waiting list to go ahead and take that spot, because we only have 14. So it's really, really important that students are here every day on time and picked up on time, so that they're not facing the possibility of losing their placement in hybrid in-person instruction. Same thing with behavior. The discipline code hasn't changed. It's the same. The only thing that's going to be an additional layer to that is that all of our health protocols are kind of folded into the discipline. So it's really important, because it's a requirement for us to be open. It's for everyone else's safety that our students are wearing, for example, that mask or face covering at all times. And just make sure you talk to your child. They will have to wear it, even whether they're indoor, outdoor, it doesn't matter. And it's the same for students and staff. The only reason I'm not wearing one right now is because my door is closed and I'm alone in my room. When my door is open, I have my mask on too. So it's something that we're required to do at this moment. We're of course hoping, in the future that things will become relaxed as more people are vaccinated and it's safe to do so. But at this time, that's what we have to do. So the physical distancing and then the masks, that will fold into behavior. As far as supplies go, so I want to make sure that you know that for students who are in person, your students are not required to bring their Chromebooks back. We will have a Chromebook for them here. So they will be able to just keep that Chromebook and charger at home for when they're assigned asynchronous learning. And then we'll have that equipment for them to use here. Same thing with school supplies. You may have come and picked up supplies at some point. Those can stay at home for when they're working at home. We will supply them with fresh supplies here at school for their use here. The one thing we will be asking you to have your child bring back is their books. So their textbooks, whether it's a hardback or whether it's the math ones they write on, we will need those to come back. But it's just a matter of bringing it back one time, and then it'll just stay in their desk like it used to before, we were doing the learning at home. So essentially, it's like they borrowed it to do the learning at home, and now we're just bringing it back into the desk where it would normally go. School communication, like I mentioned earlier, it is more important than ever that we have current numbers in ARIES. Like I said, frequent unavailability could result in the loss of placement in hybrid instruction, because we do have waiting lists of kids who want to come to school. So that's just for parents and guardians, just to check in with our office here and there to make sure we have your most active phone number. If it changes a lot, just making sure we know every time it changes. Emergency contacts, many of our parents are busy, they're working, they have things they're doing during the day, and we totally understand. However, for kids coming back, we have to have a physical body who can come, that has permission to pick up your child if they are determined to be displaying COVID-19 symptoms by a care team nurse. So I encourage you to have like a plan B, a plan C, at least a couple of people that you trust, in the case that they are being sent home, that we can contact and that can come and pick them up. Parent Square is a really great tool. You may have questions that come up throughout the school year, different things that you might want to ask us, and we're all on Parent Square. So if you're not on it, I encourage you to get on it. We will be sending most of our communications to our parents through Parent Square. So I just encourage you again, if you need any help setting that up, feel free to call us at any time, and somebody will be happy to help you set that up or answer any questions that you might have. So this is just a slide about how you can help. So one of the things we're asking is just that, of course, like I mentioned, face coverings are a requirement for everyone over the age of 2, inside and outside. And frankly, your kids aren't used to that. They've been doing all the learning at home. They don't have to wear a mask in your household. So it takes some adjusting. I mean, even when we were first required to wear them all the time, it took some adjusting for us. I remember feeling like, oh, I can't breathe in this thing, in the beginning. And then over time, I got used to it and accustomed. So I definitely encourage you to talk to your child about that. I definitely encourage you to practice with them over the spring break, maybe have them wear it, kind of maybe 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, then 30 minutes, kind of building on it, because they will have to do that at all times coming to school. Physical distancing also, they haven't had to do that at home. So just talk to them about that. Make sure that they realize they will be physically distanced at all times. They'll have to stay in their desk area. They will not be able to get up and move around. Speak to them about the restroom. They're used to being able to go whenever they want. They will not have that ability once we're back at school. Recess time, just letting them know it's going to look a little bit different. They might want to start thinking about things they like to do on their own, just so that they're ready, so they have that, with them, that, maybe taking a coloring book with them if they want in their backpack, or, something that they can do during the recess time on their own, just in case. And then, of course, speaking to them about their siblings. I know a lot of times, a lot of our families kind of depend on older brother and sister to take care of little brother and sister. And with the guidelines we have to follow, at this point, it's just not going to be, be able to happen. Last slide here, and for those of you guys who are just jumping in, I'm just finishing the English orientation, and we're going to move right into the Spanish in just a minute. If at any point you decide that you want to change your mind, and that is, you're not really ready for this, you're welcome to call our office and they can help you with that. I just want you to keep in mind that your surveys, right now, that this information is just for this year. So this is just getting us through the last couple of months. And then hopefully next year will look totally different. We all have our fingers crossed, but this is just for this time. All right. Unfortunately, I don't have time for a lot of time for questions. I can take at least one if you have one, and then I'm going to be setting up for our Spanish